By the time I get through it all. Okay. The time is 7 p.m. and I call this regularly scheduled meeting of the Red Oak City Council to order. Let it be known that notice has been duly posted in accordance to Texas Government Code Section 551, and that we do have a quorum present with all council members in attendance. The reverb. So.
Someone's playing the live stream, so you're getting the
somewhere. Okay. All right. Let's see. We have all council members present, and we are here to conduct business on for the city. And Lord help us. Councilman Smith, will you be gracious enough to lead us in the invocation and pledge allegiance?
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for the many blessings you have bestowed upon us. Come together this evening, we pray that you bless all of those participating, our family members, friends, and neighbors who are not able to be here with us tonight. We would also ask that you watch over everyone and safeguard our city staff, public servants, first responders, as they all go about their duties in service to our community. We ask that you provide us with your guidance and wisdom as we conduct the business of this city. Help us in our deliberations that we might represent all members of the community fairly and make decisions that promote the common good. All of these things we pray in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilman Smith. Okay, so now's actually an exciting time during our council meetings, which we either get to recognize a promotion or a deed that's nothing that's too small, and we actually have one that is a fabulous servant leader. If I can get Councilman Drake to come assist, and this is just something that's not heard of. Most often, people choose to go elsewhere to work in a short period of time, but we have somebody that's worked faithfully for our city, and we'll do the honors. Yep.
Okay. Cynthia and Board. State that Ms. Cynthia Brewer has been a part of our community for the last 24 years working for our U.S. Post Office. She will be retiring this month, as a matter of fact. She's also a veteran of the U.S. Army, I believe, and we want to recognize you for that honor, and we want to say thank you very much on behalf of the City of Red Oak and the City Council, as far as all the staff in Red Oak. We really appreciate your service that you provided for us, and we want to just say thank you again for us. If you can come up and join me to receive this, please. Wonderful mayor, and on the other side of it, like you as well. It reads, in recognition of your outstanding service and dedication to the United States Postal Service and the citizens and community of the Red Oak, Texas, serving 24 years at the Red Oak Post Office. Presented this date, 13th day of March, 2023, by your Red Oak City Council, Mayor, City Manager, which is Todd Fuller right here, and the rest of our staff. We thank you so much.
Wow. Needs to be in and it does it right. Here we go. 1, 2, 3.
Those are the fun recognitions and presentations that we get to do, so, again, thank you for your military service, and thank you for your service, to the United States Post Office. Now we're at a time for citizens' comments. Do we have any others that were presented? So we did receive one that's gonna be an online, but that's specific for item 13. Was there anyone here that, didn't realize that we need to pick up a sheet and ask for, permission to be able to talk during citizens' comments, that would like to get one? Okay, so hearing none, we will move on with our meeting. Now is the time when we talk about consent agenda items. Consent agenda are items that can be acted upon with one motion. They are items that are considered routine in nature, and either a city management or a council member can withdraw any of those to be considered separate. Is there any item, and that would be item 1 through 7, that someone would like to be withdrawn and considered separately?
No.
Okay. Hearing none, I'll consider a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Councilman Goodwin, Councilman Drake. Those in favor?
Franklin, aye.
Aye.
Drake, aye.
Lightfoot, aye.
Smith, aye.
That passes 5-0. Regular business. Item 8, consider adoption of resolution number 23-019R, the City Council of City of Red Oak, Texas, approving the annual comprehensive financial report audit by Matilio, Brown, and Hill, I apologize if I butchered that, LLP, which is attached here to and incorporated herein as Exhibit A, providing for filing in the office of City Secretary and providing an effective date. Yes, sir. Please introduce yourself.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. My name is Kent Willis, Audit Manager at Patillo, Brown and Hill. That's close, Patillo.
Okay.
We're just down the road in Waco. We've worked with the city for 3 years now, doing the external audit. I'm here tonight to talk about the 2022 financial statement audit. So, I'll keep this brief. I know you'll have some other business to attend to tonight, but if you have a question, if you have an area you want to drill down into, just stop me at any point. I don't mind at all. We can get into the debits and credits if you want to go that low. Just let me know. So you have 3 things in front of you tonight. You've got the spiral bound document, which is the ACFR, and then a separate document, which is the single audit report. I'm going to hit the high points of these 2 things, and then I'll let you guys get on to the rest of your agenda. But I do want to start off by saying thanks to Gloria and her team. I don't know if any of you guys have been audited before. It's not a lot of fun. We have a lot of questions, a lot of requests, and they really bear the brunt of it. So the good news that I'm here to deliver tonight, spoiler alert, is because of the hard work of those guys, but also the hard work of everybody at the city who just does the right thing and follows the policies. So I want to appreciate everybody who contributed to a successful audit this year. All right, so one thing I want to point out at the top of this, you may see the word draft on these things. I think you may be aware of why that is right now. We were waiting on GFOA comments from last year's report. As you know, when this document's completed, it's submitted to the GFOA for a pretty rigorous grading process, and apparently a very lengthy grading process, because we're now 9 months from the last time it was submitted, and we're still waiting. But what we expect is what you've got in front of you tonight is a near final draft. Not expecting any significant changes between now and the completion of it. We're really just waiting on that last formality of the comments to come back. So just wanted to point that out, but don't expect any changes going forward.
Comments from?
GFOA, that's the Government Finance Officers Association. And what happens at the conclusion of this audit, or every audit, this document gets submitted to them. And what they'll do is they'll go through the whole thing and grade it against a big checklist of content, formatting, and accounting principles. And so actually, the city has applied for this award, I'm not sure how many years in a row, you know? I think about 9 or 10 years in a row that the city has applied for that award and gotten it. And so it's fully voluntary, it's not required. And we do probably 150 or 200 audits of governments in Texas, and the minority of them do the award thing because it's hard. It takes a lot of effort from the staff. It makes this thing a lot more, makes it a bigger document, there's more information in there. But what it does is it makes it so that you can pick up Red Oak's document, the financial statement, and you can compare it to the city of Dallas, you can compare it to Burleson, and kind of, because it's in the same format and the same setup, basically. So it's something to be proud of, it really is. It's not something all of our clients do. Thanks for asking. All right, so let's get going. Page 1, that's a good place to start. Page 1, 2, and 3 is the independent auditor's report, and what we call the opinion letter. It's a summary of how the audit went, summary of the things we concluded. So I'm going to hit the high points here, and we'll move on to the next section after that. So audit was completed for the year ended September 30, 2022. We have all these standards and things we have to comply with. I'll talk some about some of the other standards at the back of the report later. But essentially what we're trying to do is get to the point where I can stand in front of you and give an opinion on the financials. Are they correct or are they not? And so what we've done throughout the whole audit process is basically every number you see in this document, we've done some sort of procedure over it. A test, analytical procedure, confirmed with a third party. As an external independent auditor, how do I know how much cash Red Oak has? Well, I can't take Gloria's word for that. I have to do something as an external auditor to check that number. And that's what we do throughout the whole process. It's 4 to 6 weeks of dedicated staff work, both myself, the partner, and other people. So a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, I guess, are shed throughout the process. But we were able to issue what's called an unmodified opinion on the financials this year. That's the new term for clean opinion, and it's the highest level of assurance we can give on a government audit. So really pleased to give you the clean opinion. I'm sure you expected it, but I'm happy to be able to come here and report that to you this evening. So congrats on the clean opinion. That's the highest level of assurance we can give on an audit of a government's financial statements. All right, so that opinion letter is what you think about when you think about an audit of a government. Your balance sheets, income statements, all that good stuff. Let's take a look at the dark blue spiral document. We've got a couple minutes. We'll go over that, and then I'll conclude. And probably the best thing to look at in here, let's take a look at page 6. I think that'll put this in context. All right, so page 6. This particular schedule is called the Schedule of Expenditures of Federal Awards. What it is a listing of all the federal grant dollars that were spent by the city during FY22. So there's a Bulletproof Vest program. The biggest one you see on there is the State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund. That's the ARPA dollars that you guys have received in the past. Our job as the auditor, if I come in here and this listing of expenditures is over $750,000, that triggers what's called a single audit, and I've got to pick one or more of these programs and drill down into the details. All right, these federal dollars are not given to the city with no strings attached. You've got to spend the money on the right thing. You've got to follow all the rules that the feds put forth for you. And so what we do is we come in, we select one of these. We actually pick the ARPA grant because it is large and it is risky. It's a new grant. And I would have to sit here and tell you tonight if we found non-compliance, if we found some issue where you didn't follow the federal guidelines, I'd have to tell you about that. And I will say, this is where our clients get tripped up. Federal guidelines are complicated. These were ever changing. The money came out before the rules were ever finalized. So it was a difficult process for our governments and for us to get through this stuff, but I am happy to report again on this topic. We have a clean opinion to provide on the grant testing that we did. So in the financial statement area, good as it gets. In this area, the single audit area, as good as it gets when it comes to an audit of a government. So good news to provide tonight. I like having this kind of presentation. It's nice to have good news. Yes.
Is this information public record?
Sure is.
Is it possible to put it on the screen so the public can see what we're seeing?
You want to see the schedule there?
While you explain? Is that possible?
It might be. Is it on?
I've got it right here.
Is it in your packet?
Should be in the packet, page 6 of the.
For the public?
Up there, keep going.
Oh, we got it, okay. Thank you.
You'll have to share your screen.
Yeah, I do.
Go to page 6.
I'm not on Zoom, John, I'm just on that.
Right there. Right there. So there's the 3 grant programs I was referring to.
Thank you.
Do you have a question about it or anything I can point out? Or?
Now, are you coming back once we finish the final?
That'll be up to you guys. If you guys want one of us to come back and present, we sure can. Like I said earlier, I don't expect any significant changes. It's just.
I don't want to alter your.
No, we're here for you. You can tell us. Okay. Any other questions I can answer or?
So the termination, the word that you said, ARPA, how do you get that out of the second one up there?
So ARPA is the America.
Oh, ARPA, well, okay, so.
ARPA, American Recovery Plan Act. Okay. That was the act that was passed by Congress, it was called ARPA. And then there's like different buckets within the plan that provided money to government. And yours was the State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund, which is a mouthful. That's why we say ARPA. So that's just the act that was passed by Congress, and then the bucket of money that our local governments were provided was the State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund. Yeah, it's got a lot, $3.3 million of funding to help the city, in ways that might not have been available without that federal dollars, so it was a good program. Any other questions? What else can I answer?
Not a question, but just one thing, a couple of things to point out. One is, a change. You have Michael Brawley as the mayor pro tem, that should be William Drake. So that's the only change, but the other point was what William was talking about, is coming back after.
Jeffrey Smith.
No, he's on there. He's just not the mayor pro tem.
Oh, okay.
So, the way it would work is you would approve it tonight, because we can't submit it until it's approved. But when the GFOA brings those items back, they're not actually part of the audit itself. It's part of the award process. So either they can come back with that, or if you wanted a report from Gloria and staff, we could just identify and show you what those comments were that GFOA had. So however y'all wanted to do that, so.
And I believe in the past, we've also done the presentation of the GFOA award.
Right.
So that would also tell you that everything checked out and,
Because we'll definitely win the award again.
So we definitely win the award.
Good question.
So when we win.
Right.
Win it out, no doubt. We'll get that city official page corrected, and we'll deliver updated copies of the signatures and all that, so.
Todd, is there anything we should take away from, other than the positive results, anything you think that as council we need to take away from the report as we're approving it today?
So I think the biggest thing to take away from it is, for me and for you guys, I think it shows that we have pretty good confidence in our finance department and Gloria, not only just for the day-to-day work of making sure everything works right, but from the huge amount of work that she has to do in working with Dilla to put this thing together. So that would be the big takeaway.
I agree. I think, which is why I asked this public record to be displayed. I think that should be highlighted, especially in a climate to where there's a sense of distrust with our city officials, our city government. I think you and your staff have done an excellent job, and I think this should be highlighted.
All right, I think that, mimicking what Councilman Williams said, it needs to be defined so the public will understand the audit. Some format, I don't know how to fix that or how to make that happen, but at least for the public reader, they'll know what the audit means. Yeah, the average person, I don't even think that they even know, and when they look at it, they see numbers.
Yeah, a lot of people will think it's like an IRS audit
Right.
or something when they hear that word, and that's not exactly what it is. So, I think it's probably something that we can put, you know, out onto the website, and out on the social media, once we get the award.
Right.
That we got the award, but maybe with a short paragraph of what it actually means.
Exactly, yeah, exactly, right, something.
Everything should be out
They see audit, they think of it as our
Right.
You say that's a big.
Well, actually, the single audit kinda is somewhat of an IRS audit.
Yeah, the feds just farm the work out to us, and make us do it.
Right.
Instead of them doing it. Pretty much.
Thank you so much.
Any other comments,
Yeah.
council? Thank,
Good results, so we have good controls process.
and look at the growth. There were some growth numbers in there, that were still strong and fiscally responsible. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So this is, an action item. If there's no other questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve, adopt resolution number 23-019R. Councilman Smith? Councilman Drake? Those in favor?
Franklin, aye.
Drake, aye.
Lightfoot, aye.
Smith, aye. That passes 5-0. Thank you, sir, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 9, consider adoption of resolution number 23-020R, the City Council of City Red Oak, Texas, adopting the 2022 Ellis County Hazard Mitigation Plan, which is attached here to and incorporated herein as Exhibit A. Chief.
Evening, Mayor and Council, the adoption of the Ellis County Hazard Mitigation fulfills the requirements of the Disaster Mitigation Act, put forth to us by FEMA. The Disaster Mitigation Act provides us with federal assistance to both state and local in the event we have a disaster, a natural disaster within our area. Originally, the financial impact of this was going to be over $4,000 to the city. However, staff has spent numerous hours attending trainings, working on the plan, attending different meetings, which is considered in-kind work, and staff has been able to reduce that cost to $0 as far as financial impact to the city.
Questions?
I had a broad question, or general question, about the members. There are the members that we provide, that different cities provide to the HMPP. Why our fire marshal, why city secretaries for several other cities, you know?
As far as the individual that we chose to participate in that.
How does city, I guess out of these jurisdictions, when we choose to their representatives?
It's up to the emergency management coordinator. And at that time, we didn't have Assistant Chief Young in here, and trying to get things done, and trying to divide our office and divide and conquer. So he represented us and then brought that information back to us, and went through it and helped him.
Okay. Is it more, you said representation, is that more what the role entails?
Yes, sir.
Being there to come back, make decisions here locally, basically, if there's a decision.
Yes, sir.
I just noticed we were the only ones with the fire marshal on the roster.
I don't want to talk
Every other city did it.
Any other questions?
No questions.
Entertain a motion to adopt resolution number 23-020R.
So moved.
Councilman Franklin,
Second.
Councilman Lightfoot. Those in favor?
Franklin, aye.
Drake, aye.
Lightfoot, aye.
Smith, aye. That's 5-0. Item 10, thank you, Chief. Consider adoption of resolution number 23-021R, the City Council, City of Red Oak, Texas, approving an expenditure of funds by the Red Oak Economic Development Corporation in the amount not to exceed $80,000 for professional service agreement with Kimley Horn and Associates, KHA, to develop a preliminary design concept for a future 6-lane urban roadway extension of Farm to Market Road 2377 from east of Shirley Lane at Farm to Market Road, 2377 intersection to west of Stevenson Road at Interstate 35E intersection and providing an effective date. Mr. Fuller, or?
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
So what we have here is several years ago, back in 2003 or 2 or something like that, we had RTC and the COG do kind of a planning study, a look ahead for where potential roadways within Red Oak might be able to be located. So they had actually, way back then, identified the connection, basically, that's part of what we're looking at with this study, is where exactly it goes. But it basically connects Stevenson Road across the golf course area to 2377, so that we have another east-west corridor to handle all the traffic funneling them to I-35. So, in looking at what we are looking here tonight for, EDC's already approved it, but this will basically give us not a final design set of plans that they can actually go build, but this would be a set of schematics that basically puts everything together so that we can try to sell this thing to RTC and to TxDOT and to COG, because it ultimately would have to be funded through one of those. So it'd be kind of similar to what we did back when we worked with the other communities to get Oakville Road widened and expanded. We went through that schematic approach first so that we had something to show and tell. And that's kind of what we're asking for here today, so that we can start working on RTC, COG, TxDOT, trying to put something in front of them so that we can make sure we're getting as many transportation dollars as possible. So that's what we're asking. I think Ben had looked at, 2 or 3 different options. They were all about similar prices. We looked to go with Kimley Horn because we worked with them, quite a bit, particularly in that area. So, Lee or Ben, if y'all have any other thing to add.
No, that sums it up.
Any questions? Does anyone have any questions?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, is that 80,000 the total?
It's a not to exceed.
Not to, okay.
Yes. I think it was actually 70.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's a not to exceed.
So, questions I have, Mayor Pro Tem.
Anyone else have any questions?
Just a comment, because Todd had mentioned it, but this is something that's coming from the EDC as well, so EDC looked at this and wants.
Consider, resolution of, consider adopting, resolution number 23-021R.
So move.
Second.
All approved.
Franklin, aye.
Who got the second on that?
Lightfoot. Whoever Karen said, already heard. You have the next one.
All approved.
Franklin, aye.
Drake, aye.
Lightfoot, aye.
Smith, aye. Approved 5-0. Number 11, consider adopting resolution number 23-022R of the City Council of the City of Red Oak, Texas, approving the expenditure of funds by the City of Red Oak Industrial Development Corporation, the CROIDC, in the amount of $34,000 per acre, for a total expenditure of $2,854,504, plus additional closing costs, if any, for the purchase of approximately 83.956 acres. The property land located in the northwest corner of Farm Road, 2377, and Pratt Road, of the City of Red Oak, Ellis County, Texas, for economic development purposes, authorizing the signing of such further documents as may be necessary to, consuming said purchase and providing an effective date. Ms. Berry?
Oh, okay, so this is, if you remember last month, we talked about this. This was the opportunity we had to buy that hard corner at 2377 in Pratt. We were able to negotiate that a little bit cheaper than what they originally asked. IDC approved that at their last meeting, and they're strictly asking for approval of the funding for tonight.
Actually, Todd really did a good job negotiating this, as usual.
So any comments on it? No questions, no questions.
IDC wants to buy some more than
So you want a motion on the, we have a motion?
Oh, he's back.
Okay. No questions, council? Okay. Entertain a motion to approve resolution number 23-022R.
So moved.
Councilman Franklin, second by Councilman Drake. Those in favor?
Franklin, aye. Drake, aye.
Lightfoot, aye.
Smith, aye.
All right, that passes 5-0. Thank you. Item 12. Consider adoption of resolution number 23-023R, the City of Red Oak, Texas, approving an expenditure of funds by the Red Oak Economic Development Corporation in the amount not to exceed $33,000 for a proposal from Westfall Engineering, PLLC, to coordinate and prepare a flood study and grading plan for a floodplain reclamation and providing an effective date.
So, this is property right out here by the lake on the southeast corner of the lake where the billboard used to be that was family gone. Hallelujah. But when that was bought, you know, part of the issue with that was there is a lot of it that's in floodplain and a little bit of it that's not in floodplain. So what we're trying to do for EDC and for parks purposes is determine how much of that property is going to ultimately be developable. You know, we're not going to go out and develop it, but we need to figure out how to mitigate and reclaim some of that floodplain so that we know when Kyle starts doing his planning for his parks over here, we know this is the area that we're planning for the parks. And what we're doing up here is trying to get back 2 or 3 acres out of the floodplain by making the reclamation process. So again, this was, EDC approved this one at their last meeting, and staff recommends approval as well. Lee or Ben, again, if y'all have anything to add.
Any other questions?
No questions.
All right.
If they take that spoil out of that, rent that lake for you.
Entertain a motion to adopt resolution 23-023R, excuse me, I'm sorry. Do y'all need to add anything? Okay. I apologize. Entertain, that motion to adopt resolution 23-023R.
So, second.
Okay, Councilman Drake and Councilman Lightfoot. Those in favor?
Franklin, aye.
Aye.
Drake, aye.
Lightfoot, aye.
Smith, aye.
All right, that passes 5-0. Thank y'all. Item 13, conduct a public hearing and consider approval of ordinance number 23-007 of City Council, City of Red Oak, Texas, amending the comprehensive zoning ordinance and map of the City of Red Oak, Texas, as heretofore amended by granting a change from Plan Development 85 Revised to Plan Development 85 Revised 2 to allow for the use, construction, and maintenance of an approximately 650 square foot accessory dwelling unit on real property described as Lot 7, Block A of the Cole Manor Addition, 213 Stonegate Way, City of Red Oak, Ellis County, Texas, providing providing for site plan, floor plan, and elevation plans, Exhibit A through C respectively, which is attached hereto and incorporated herein as development regulations, providing for an additional development regulations, providing for a repealing clause, providing a severability clause, providing a savings clause, providing a penalty of fine not to exceed the sum of $2,000 for each offense, and providing an effective date, case ZC 23-03, requested by Victor Martinez. Dr. Emma.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The applicant is requesting to construct a 650 square feet accessory dwelling unit to house families. The proposed structure will be located behind the existing home and will follow all minimum setback requirements, as shown on the attached plan. The exterior material of the proposed accessory structure will be stone veneer, and the material and design are compatible with the existing home. Basically, we're going through this process just to make sure that it's going to be compatible with the existing home, it's going to meet all the setback requirements. Generally, these types of improvements increase the property's value, so staff does recommend approval of the request as presented. And they have gone through their homeowners association and gotten approval.
Oh, man.
Yes.
Sorry, you said the homeowners association approved?
Yes.
Okay. And, so this is also a public hearing. So the time is, 7:37, and we will open this public hearing. And we do have, a request by Mr. Martinez. Is that correct? Or, the builder,
Blanca Martinez.
Okay, Blanca? Then they're online?
Yes, yes, I'm online. Good afternoon. Good evening. Yes, sir.
Yep, go ahead.
Well, we've been approved by the HOA, and we submitted all the plans as the city requested. As you said, the ADU is 650 square feet. And we've been trying to do as the city, everything the city has requested, we've been trying to submit it as good as possible so it can be approved.
Thank you, ma'am. Was there anybody else online? Did we get any other requests? Okay. Anybody here to speak on that? I'll entertain a motion to close at 7:38. Councilman Franklin, Councilman Drake. Those to close.
Franklin, aye.
Aye.
Drake, aye.
Smith, aye.
All right, that passes 5-0. Stay online, please, ma'am, in case we have a
Okay.
couple of questions.
All right.
So, and this went through P&Z, correct? And the consensus from them was? Okay. So are they having to add their own septic system, or is it gonna tie into the?
So they provided a letter from their septic designer, that they're gonna tie into the existing.
I mean, is that, there's capacity for that, I guess?
According to their.
So we just have to trust
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, questions, anybody?
Yes, thank you. What does the ordinance read as far as renting out the properties on the lot? Do we have anything in place?
So what it technically says is something to the effect of, it's only for blood relatives, whether it's rented or not. It doesn't say specifically, it just says blood relatives, which, Bob, help me out, I'm pretty sure you can't say that.
I wrote a provision in there, they cannot use it as an STR.
Okay.
But it could be used, it could be rented out. Because I think us put a limit on, status of the renter to the owner is probably unconstitutional.
Help me understand, so how can they sign a waiver not to use it a short-term rental, but they're allowed to rent it out to someone? Maybe I'm lost.
Rental, it's a different product, it's a different concept.
Short-term rental has a different legal definition, is that what you're
Yes, short-term rental is for rental, for like overnight stays, less than 30 days. Normal rental, is a lot. Residential.
Mother-in-law's included ordinance.
So you couldn't use it like a bed and breakfast or something like that, but what I'm understanding is you could rent it out to somebody who wanted to live there for a year, 2 years, or whatever. Constitutionally, you couldn't require them to be actual blood relative.
Right.
So it could be rented out, it's just not gonna be a B&B
The
or.
way I've written the regulation, I'm treating the STR as more of a retail or commercial operation instead of a rental or historic residential rental property. People usually sign a lease for at least 6 months, a year. Overnight stay.
I kind of struggle with the whole ability to rent it out aspect, but if their HOA approved it, I mean, I think that's a accomplishment within itself.
Well, what they approved, I think, that they're in a different status than you are. So whatever their deed restrictions are, a limitation on that rental will be private concern, not public.
Right.
So I would envision that the reason they've limited it to renter has to be related in some degree of consanguinity or affinity to the owner of the property. How that probably agrees with the blood relative. Probably has a degree of consanguinity, in-law, or blood relative.
Okay.
So it traditionally, to quote Mr. Goodwin's mother-in-law house, usually the parent of the owner is actually the one.
Sure, and that retrospect, I'm all for it,
And I assume that that's how it got through HOA.
Yeah, but with the fact of being able to rent it out for supplemental income, the long-term effect is what I struggle with.
Yes, I understand, and it's a concern of mine as well.
That's mine. Thank you.
Any other questions, council?
Susan, I think what Bob's proposing balances that pretty well. I mean, we tell them you can't collect rent, even if you have a relative living there, that would be difficult. So I think limiting it away from those commercial purposes or short-term commercial purposes is probably the best we can get there. We like the idea of it anyway, which I think.
I'm assuming
I don't
the
have any general
homeowners
problem.
association's got a tighter regulation, and of course, they will enforce that. We just can't.
Gotcha. Okay.
Additionally, it's all on, the same hookups, right? Same water, same sewer,
Sure.
same electric, so it does make it more cumbersome to legal.
So that does bring up a good point. I didn't think electrical was allowed to have 2 residential meters on one lot.
So they don't have 2 meters, they're jumping off the main.
So-
They have one unit.
That prevents it from being a separated rental.
That way,
You are akin
right,
to this person, if you're leasing it, you are much more involved than if you were on separate meters, right?
right.
Like renting out a room in your house, happens to be the room's detached.
A lot of times these are called, go to University Park, Highland Park, it's called servants' quarters. And so that was traditionally, a lot of the houses have this small living area, either above the garage or attached to the house. They become, in University Park and Highland Park, they become, not many people live in domestic help, but you'll find a lot of SMU students will rent those. They have a relationship usually with homeowners, not just as a tenant relationship, it's more like a foster or surrogate son or daughter.
Okay. All right, any other questions, council? All right. So I'll consider approval of ordinance number 23-007.
So moved.
Councilman Smith, Councilman Lightfoot, those in favor?
Aye. Lightfoot, aye. Doesn't take it, you can just say,
Yeah, I'm bringing them both.
we don't have that many opposition, so we don't have protocol.
You said aye?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so that passes 4-1. Sorry if I understand how.
I thought that was.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. You all have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 14, consider adoption of resolution number 23-024R of the City Council of the City of Red Oak, Texas, authorizing the city's participation in the state of Texas opioid lawsuit settlements with Algarant, CVS, Walgreens, Walmart, and authorizing the mayor to execute and submit all necessary documents, including the required subdivision participation form, and providing an effective date.
Mayor and council, this is an item, has long been brewing, and you'll recall in the news some years ago, there was a lawsuit filed against Purdue Pharmaceutical for manufacturing opioids, Oxycontin and the biggest ones. And that lawsuit started a lawsuit chain across the United States. The attorney generals for each of the states got involved. And so the way those lawsuits were fashioned is that it went after the manufacturers of opioids, not giving adequate warning and dispensing these opioids, which has caused a natural or public epidemic use and the effects of opioids. Part of that, the lawsuits after the attorney generals in Perry, Missouri, with all of our cities, filed those suits on behalf of the state of Texas, on behalf of all the political subdivisions, county, cities, and the state. And so each one of the states received based on population. We were required to produce evidence, and we received from the police department all drug-related offenses involving the opioids. Those were submitted to the attorney general. The attorney general set up a trust fund. There was 2 tranches of money. One tranche of money was for the actual manufacturers of the opioids, and all of the, like McKesson and Health and all some of the big drug manufacturers paid money into the trust fund, into the court, and then was dispersed to each one of the states. Second tranche of money was for those, and the lawsuit was amended to include not only the manufacturers of the drugs, but also the people that are responsible for dispensing them, being the pharmacists and the pharmacies. And so this tranche of money that we're asking, the first tranche of money has been approved. So it's in the trust fund waiting to be distributed. The second tranche of money, that they reached a settlement with CVS, Algarant, Walmart, and Walgreens as the dispensers of those opioids for a second tranche of money of $913 million. First tranche of money was almost $2 million. So we've got a total of money that's distributed in Texas of $2.9 billion. So each one of the cities, based on your population that qualified, and Red Oak's one of those cities that's qualified, will receive a pretty significant amount of money based on your population. That money has been earmarked to be used for drug interdiction and drug prevention purposes, and will all likelihood be administered either to the fire department for drug awareness, the police department for drug awareness, or the city. So we're asking you to approve the second tranche of money with the pharmacies. Assuming you approve this tonight, we'll return the paperwork to the Attorney General's office, and the trust funds are supposed to be accumulated by April the 15th, and then the distribution of the money will then begin. So we look forward to receiving that money over the course of the late spring and early summer. And I'll be other questions?
Sure. So were the ISDs allowed to file on this, or is that something that
No.
cities then need to be able to reach out to the ISDs?
It's through the cities, through the political subdivision.
Okay. And
Yeah, I mean, I think we can coordinate the activity with the school district for the prevention program, sure.
Yeah.
And we can, I don't want to speak for you or the rest of the city, but the money, some of the money could actually be distributed to the school district for those purposes. Just like any other federal money or like federal money, there'll be some regulations, and we'll have some reporting requirements to the trust
Sure.
to make sure we spend it in accordance with the settlement.
Okay.
Can we go to school with?
I'm sorry.
Can we go to school with?
I did have a question, since I know we were joking about it, but the dollar amounts of the chart that we have as $2 amounts. Can you tell us, is that $25,000? That's what we're looking at for our portion? So not gonna build a school with that. That's a pretty small dollar amount. Are we giving up any future consideration to get that?
Not unless you want to follow your own laws.
That was my question. So
That's the problem.
basically, that's what we're agreeing to be part of the larger
It's a big
number.
number because of the volume.
Sure.
We're a large state.
I get it's all done by population, we're this 0.017% of the state's population. That's what, to be sure, so the number below, the $53 million is our regional portion of the award, okay.
You'll donate your services, so we can get that part too?
I don't have to do a dog on things you don't have to pay me for. That's even better. It's even better.
No, I know.
So basically, if I can summarize in layman's terms, we just need to register our participation in the settlement in order to be eligible to receive our portion, which is roughly $25,000.
Yes.
So
do we know what the terms are? You mentioned education, which makes sense. So there are gonna be other
Prevention,
options?
education, or
Okay.
how the money is earmarked for.
Okay, so it's not for any hard costs or hard,
Unfortunately. not.
impact.
So it's a one-time, it's a one-time.
It's a one-time. thing.
Distribution.
It's not an ongoing.
Got it. Okay. All right, I mean,
If
So,
you're a city the size of Dallas, then obviously that's.
sure.
That's what we use for awareness.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense.
so is
Depends on
there,
how they feel it's divided up.
so do we know, are there, do you have other, yeah,
Yes,
that are not accepting this?
no.
I mean, can you kind of know if you can say
You
that?
would have to, the amount of people that you would have to hire and the litigation that would, you opted out of this, you'd have to file your own lawsuit against these drug manufacturers. And I'm good,
You
but
can-
I'm not Walgreens good, I'm not Walmart good, I'm not CVS good. I mean, this is significant legal. You be quiet and, or I'll sick that dog at you. It doesn't make practical sense for any individual city or even the state of Texas to do this on them. So what they've done is they filed this lawsuit, it's actually out of, I think, district court in Ohio,
Okay.
where the drug manufacturing facilities originally were.
Can we buy a canine with it?
Who's paying?
Well, his canines.
Well, not his canine, his canine.
You
I
couldn't
mean,
even
yeah,
buy
I
a
look at
drug
the
sniffing dog.
2022 annual report, and there
Yeah.
are a lot of seizures from our canine unit in here.
Well, that you can buy a dog.
That's
And- Right.
That's my question, that's what I was asking, is
That's
it
what I'm getting-
education only, or,
Yes, it's
Okay.
limited prevention education.
okay, so we could not buy a dog with it, sounds like.
You can't really use it for any interdiction purposes.
Okay,
But, you know, I will say this, that both police and fire departments become very innovative in how they wrap those things. And so there may be opportunities for some of the money, although it's not a lot of money for things that we, you know, like if we had, for example, if we had a car that was dedicated to a drug prevention department or something like that, we could use some of the funds to offset those costs. There's ways you can do that.
And Bob, just for clarification, so the 25,000 on here, that is strictly for this tranche of
Yes,
money?
I believe that's correct.
And
You have
the
another
first tranche is
money
another
out of-
similar number
Yeah, it's,
20-something
probably
thousand.
close to 50 on that one, just because
So
the numbers are a lot larger.
So this will be ongoing, we'll see something similar to this later on, and.
I think we already approved the
Oh, we
first.
did that, okay.
Yeah, everyone has to turn in their paperwork by the 15th of April, and then they'll actually send us a notice of what our, total takes will be under the 2.9 million. This is only, what I'm asking you to approve tonight is only just one building.
Yeah, I think the total amount is gonna be somewhere between 50 and 75,000
Yeah,
total.
it's closer to 75.
I understand, I'm sorry for asking so many questions, I just didn't want to be,
No, it's all right.
sure, I know it's a small dollar amount in the grand scheme of things, but signing on to join on the state settlement is probably something we
You can
should
only
do.
imagine, I know Texas is large, rich, $3 billion just for Texas.
Question, Councilman.
So, consider adoption of, consider a motion to adopt resolution 23-024R.
So moved.
Councilman Franklin, Councilman Gray. Those in favor?
Franklin, aye.
Aye. Drake, aye.
Place aye.
Smith, aye.
That passes 5-0. Item 15, conduct a public hearing and consider approval of ordinance number 23-006, the city of Red Oak, Texas, providing for a voluntary annexation of territory generally described. Bob, is this one that we're gonna go ahead and?
Yeah, you're just gonna continue this till next month, because I called Mr. Anderson, and hopefully we're gonna have something very shortly, but we don't have anything tonight.
Okay.
So I'd ask you to continue this one more time to our regular meeting in April.
Okay. So do I need to finish reading it or no?
No.
Okay. So we are, and you'll handle that?
I will take care of that, if you will have a motion to, continue the public hearing and consider ordinance, for annexation as posted.
Okay. Entertain that motion.
So moved.
Councilman Lightfoot, Councilman Drake. Those in favor?
Franklin, aye.
Aye, Drake, aye.
Place aye.
Smith, aye.
That's 5-0. Okay, so item 16, this is discussion of parking residential subdivision. And Chiefs, you wanna tag team this one?
Chief, yeah.
Not really.
So I think what we wanted to do as staff is, I know this is a question that's come up, you know, along social media lands and so forth. Councilman Franklin was involved in some of that as well, so he asked if we could put this on as a discussion item. But really what we want to kind of do tonight, we don't have anything for you to approve or any of that. We just want to put it out on the table to begin that process of how do we want to try to deal with this situation. And, you know, I've seen things thrown out like parking on one side of the street only. You know, every 7-8 years, this thing pops up. It's popped up several times since I've been here. Every time, that is one thing that comes up. But then, historically, council has looked at it and said, well, if we do that, we got a few people mad because there's parking issues in some areas. But if we do parking on one side of the street only, then we're gonna have half the entire city upset. So how do we deal with just the problem situations? And, you know, I think these guys probably can, you know, there's only so much enforcement you can do. A lot of the calls that Chief Wolf gets in are not really illegally parked, it's just somebody doesn't like.
What's the problem?
Well, we had, I guess I started this mess, as he says. We had responded to a medical emergency in a neighborhood, and, it was after the call was over, our guys were returning to the station in the fire truck. And they couldn't make the turn, and if you see the social media post, the guys took pictures, which I appreciated, and sent back to me, and so I put that out there on social media just to ask for voluntary compliance. Help us help you, so we can get to your emergency in the event that you have a medical emergency, your house is on fire, whatever the case may be. In the picture, you can see there's cars parked within 20 feet of an intersection, which is police chief, but That is illegal. And our challenge becomes, you know, a vehicle can park within, as long as you're within 18 inches of the curb, that's legally parked. But when you start getting 20, 22 inches and you get cars double parked, it obviously starts to narrow that very quickly and creates a challenge. But in this instance, they couldn't even swing wide enough to get down the street. So it was it's not an uncommon thing that we run into. And generally, we can put out a social media post, help us help you, and it gets compliance, kind of wakes everybody up. Oh, yeah, I do need to think about where I'm parking. And those sort of things, we get compliance and we're good. And we have to do that every now and then. This particular case, it got out there pretty good. Shared a couple hundred times, and there's a lot of discussion on that. So, you know, we're just asking, you know, we ran into a similar issue today in a call that us and PD went over to a call in my neighborhood and ran into a similar issue. And I know some of the residents over there are frustrated. They expressed that to our personnel today, that, you know, they're not happy with it either. But it's just we're seeing it more so. I'm not saying this it only occurs in neighborhoods that have rear-entry garages, but it seems like we see it a lot in rear-entry garages because people want to park out front and not in their driveways or their garages for, you know, for whatever reason. So,
for numbers' sake, all of last year, we received 221 parking violation calls for service, officer initiated or code enforcement initiated for the entire city, 221. So less than one a day. Many of the times when we go out on the parking violation calls for service, what we're finding is there are not any violations of statutory law that would require us to issue a citation, tow the vehicle, provide a warning. The biggest violation that we see is parked too close to an intersection where it obscures either their turning radius or the visibility. In those instances, we issue a warning, we tag the vehicle, we make contact with the owner, try to gain voluntary compliance. If we can't, after repeated attempts, then we will issue a citation or impound that vehicle. But statistically speaking, when we go out to these additions and we respond to those calls for service or complaints, we're not finding vehicles that are actually in violation of statute. We have people that say, we don't like the fact that they're parked in front of our house, and they live 2 houses down. There's nothing statutorily that prohibits them parking down the street from their house. They're legally parked statutorily. So it's I don't like this, not so much they're in violation of the law. So our process is we try to do education first, we make contact with the owners, we try to gain voluntary compliance. In the instances where we can't, we leave a tag on the vehicle. They generally either email us or call us. We have a conversation with that. We generally gain some kind of voluntary compliance. And in the events where we can't, we issue citations or we tow the vehicles. Those are very, very rare. It doesn't happen with a lot of frequency. But I think that some of this, it gains some traction, and everybody, you know, there were a lot of statements that were made, they just need to tow the vehicles, they just need to do that, you know, or they need to issue warnings or write tickets, and the problem is they're not in violation of law. There's not anything that we can do with that. So we also evaluate those calls for service for commercial motor vehicle violations, and we're not finding a lot of those where people are calling in. We get some, but when we get out there, they're not in violation or they don't meet the statutory requirements and weight limits for commercial motor vehicles. They're maybe a larger box truck, but it's not a commercial motor vehicle by weight. So, education first, warnings, citations, and impounds of what we've done. We have to revisit this every couple of months with some of our housing additions, where either the fire department goes, hey, can you guys go back out there and remind them gently, and we'll do that, and then we'll gain compliance for a couple of weeks, and after that, we have to go back out and do it again the next month. And so the officers are spending some time and effort to try and address those issues, but it's kind of cyclic.
Chief, I have a question.
Sure.
For both, and if you have staff that can speak, I'd love to hear from them as well, because they're the boots on the ground as well. Let's say I have a vehicle parked on the street, either illegally or not registered, not operable, whatever the case may be. From the day you first make contact with that homeowner to the day that it's actually towed or enforced, how long is that time frame?
So if a vehicle is parked and it doesn't move within 72 hours, it meets the statutory definition of abandoned. So if we get called out on a vehicle that hasn't moved, the registration's expired, we'll tag it and then have 72 hours to move that vehicle, either off the roadway or it be in compliance of its registration, if it's parked on a public roadway. So generally 72 hours. The way our shifts are built and staggered, the shift that did it may actually be off longer than that with their days off. And so if that shift did it, the other shifts may or may not know that, hey, we tagged this vehicle on this street today. Can you guys go check on it on y'all's watch to see if it's gone past its time limit, to see if it needs to be towed? So logistically, there are some things that we can do to ensure that we are making contact on the appropriate time frame. But we generally gain compliance when we tag those vehicles and they get there, generally.
Is the compliance just moving for a day or so and it's right back, or?
All they have to do is move it an inch and it to another position, and it's in compliance for another 72 hours.
That assumes that it's not within 30 feet of the intersection or blocking a fire
Hydrant, or it's unregistered.
Right.
So it gets to be kind of a shell game back and forth. We've had people move it forward, move it back, move it forward, and they were like, that's really not cutting it, plus the fact that the registration's still expired, so it needs to be off of the roadway, or we're gonna have to impound your car.
I got an odd question. So are y'all in agreement with their issue?
Oh, there's clearly an issue in certain places with it affecting their ability to be able to turn on the streets, having appropriate turn radiuses. And in those instances, when we see those, we are making contact and we are getting that resolved.
And I know I've advised my staff to, in the future, not to be police officers and, write tickets or anything, but to, if they see a vehicle that appears to be within 20 feet of an intersection or 15 feet of a fire hydrant or greater than 18 inches off the curb, and I'm not asking them to get out of the car and get a tape measure, but if it appears like that, to notify PD, to let them go out there and investigate that.
So
and
there's
try to-
no resolution?
And Todd kind of brought this up, you can paint a fire lane, but then we're gonna have to maintain that fire lane. Somebody's gotta go back and maintain it, because if it gets too faded, it's on a public roadway, so that's gonna fall back on the city. If it gets too faded, these guys can't enforce it. If you put a fire lane or signs on one side of the road, and you live on the right side, and that's where we put the signs, you're happy. I live on the left side of the road, I'm not happy, because now everybody's parking in front. So it's not I don't know that there's a good resolution. I mean, and maybe in the future of creating wider streets.
This is not unique to Resnick.
Right, absolutely.
That was gonna be my question. I mean, obviously, somehow I've been the fun of this, but I've definitely heard it in the 7-year cycle, that's come up before. I guess the question is, you've outlined a protocol that you're following, you've outlined that you've even said that you've even asked your staff to look for instances that maybe it's a new protocol that you put in place. I mean, do you need a resolution to this, or is status quo a sufficient place to be? I mean, I don't want to minimize 221, I'm sure some of those are repeats, I'm sure some of those are, like you said, most of them are not actual violations, they're perceived violations, or someone that thinks it's a violation that you go review, it's not. So if you don't have the number, that's fine, but I'm sure the actual violations is even a much smaller number than that.
It is.
It's an excellent topic. The problem is, there's really no resolution.
And I'm sure those people that are impacted.
Well, I tell you what, the moment that fire truck can't make the turn.
Right.
And someone loses their life,
I mean, I agree.
we're gonna be here.
Thing is, what can you legally do? Because we gotta stay, within the law. What can you legally do to fix it?
That's
I wanna be sure that brings up a good point. Can I be sure I understood
Exactly, I agree with you. Change the size of the street.
Not being able to make the turn was because they were parked too close. They were actually in violation at that point.
Yes, sir.
So in that case, is the distance to an intersection a sufficient ordinance for you to
Right,
be
there
able to
we
make a
go.
turn?
Right.
Because if that's not, that's something we should look at changing just for your own safety and your own.
That's state law.
State law.
That's
Okay.
state law,
Okay.
and it is sufficient. And that's purely an enforcement issue. That's us going
If
out.
that's the case where they're really, I mean, you already have a mechanism to deal with it. If you were seeing it, you could get on him and say, get over there and get these tickets written, get these people in compliance.
Right.
So I think in that case, there's not a change that we need, but I understand.
But we have to establish, so my concern is, for example, this particular case, right? It's when it's in the thick of things. So when the problem occurs, then it's a matter of getting it enforced. Luckily, thank God, in this particular scenario, it wasn't going to an emergency, right? So we was a little bit lucky in that particular case. But I'm thinking, what if someone's life is on the line? So how do we prevent this in the future? Because it is a growing issue. You ride down my street, of course, I don't see how far customers make it down my street.
We can, but that's not gonna be.
So you really have two separate situations.
Right.
You have the situation of people just don't like you parked on their end of the street.
Yeah, that's why I don't really care.
And that one is not a big deal.
Right. Because I don't like people parked on my street, but that's preference, not necessarily.
Right, but at the intersections and those type of things, I think the issue is when they do see it and know about it, they're taking some sort of enforcement action. It's just they don't see them all.
Right.
And
You never know when that's gonna be a fire call.
exactly.
And you never know when, I mean, there's instances where it could be a party, Super Bowl party or whatever the case is, you're gonna have a lot of people, and people, don't think, and we don't obviously know when those are gonna occur.
So one thing, and I just asked Chief Wolf about this tonight, before the dinner. But, and I don't know that either one of us agree that this is the thing to do, it's just something that kind of exploring a little bit, is don't go strap the whole street as a fire lane, but take that 30-foot section around that intersection and strap that red. Now, I kind of tend to agree with Chief Wolf, there's still going to be knuckleheads that still park there, but at least if you have that there,
They can't say they didn't.
they can't say, why did you tow my car?
Who's responsible for that? Would they say HOA is responsible for paying the stripes?
That would have to be the city.
City.
That would have to be Scott and his crews or some contractor that they hire.
I mean, just my personal opinion, the fire lanes are going to fade, we all know that, we're replacing that city buildings.
Or you-
I mean, I get
or
it,
you
the
put a
sign
sign
is
up.
not as attractive, but the sign is gonna last longer than the fire.
Right, so designated, no parking between
Here and stop.
here to the intersection.
Yeah,
Now,
just something to designate and make people aware that I may do it anyway because I'm a knucklehead, but at least I was warned not to do it. So if I do get in trouble and get my tar coat or whatnot, then
Well, I mean, and I want this issue to be resolved.
Great idea.
But at the same time, are we making it important? City is making it important.
it's not an ordinance, it's state law, it's state traffic.
So are we going to,
intersection
are we going to, police it and
We can
say
police
you're in
the state,
violation of it?
we can already police the state transportation code.
And
We're
that's my
responsible
question.
for doing that,
We can do
yes,
that.
we can do
And
it.
I'm all for it.
Without signs, without painting?
Without signs and without painting.
That's-
But if we did signs or painting, it might cut down on having to enforce some of that, because some people will look at it and say, oh, well, I guess I better.
I mean, the crux of the conversation is this: there's only so many of us to go around with so many neighborhoods with all the other calls for service we had, not making excuses. That may help deter some of it in the grand scheme of things. I think with anything, the newness is gonna wear off of that.
Yeah.
And they're gonna continue to do it, and where we see it, we're taking enforcement action, and we're trying to address it. I don't think there's any perfect solution that addresses your concern of what if. It's just, we have to be vigilant in our exercising, and enforcement of those particular statutes as we see them and as they occur.
I think to your point, Mr. Drake, and, wider streets, maybe that's an option moving forward, obviously not in this current case, we can't go ask for wider streets in that neighborhood, but in the future. I mean, just some preliminary research I did was, average width of an SUV is 6.5 foot wide. If you got those parked across from one another, that's 13 feet, and please correct me if I'm wrong, 25 curb to curb, 29 back to back. So, and, you start to start doing all that down, you get a vehicle that is greater than 18 inches, now you start to really narrow that with a 10-foot fire truck mirror to mirror, you start to, narrow that down, very quickly.
What would you say about, so a couple of things about that. I mean, that's something that obviously we can look at, and I think, city engineer and public works probably need to be involved in that too. Because a couple of things. One is that is going to significantly increase development. It's going to be a significant deterrent to development, because if they can build their subdivision in Waxahachie or Lancaster or Midlothian and build them 29 back-to-back, or they come to Red Oak and they have to build 33 back-to-back, where they're gonna invest their money is where they can get the biggest return. And on top of that, whenever 20, 30 years from now, whenever we have to go back and replace those streets, now we're having to take on the additional expense of replacing a 33-foot back-to-back street. I'm not saying don't do it, I'm just saying those are the considerations.
I'm saying don't do it, but I think I think that, spending money on signs, it's not a ton of money unless you're gonna do a bunch of intersections that, I don't know, are you gonna have to?
Well, so are there statistics of neighborhoods that specifically, that's a recurring problem?
We have neighborhoods where we receive the majority of the calls, and where we've identified those locations where they're parking too close to the.
Those are the ones you start with right there. That's a pilot program right there.
Another option too.
I do the signs, so you don't have to go back and repaint them.
Scott?
Is that a motion?
Scott,
No action.
do you have an answer, and I don't need a particular dollar exact, but what, generally speaking, does a sign cost per sign? Whether it's a stop, any kind of sign, just general.
About 120, probably, just.
How much,
$120.
how much is the fee for a ticket if they're parking in that area? They can either pay the ticket or they can buy the sign to go there so they don't do it again.
We're doing 20 calls, I'm gonna assume there's 10 intersections or 10 areas that maybe are more prone than other, $1,200. If we think that'll make both chiefs' lives easier, that's an easy justification of the cost. I don't know that it solves it, because it's just people doing something illegal.
Always control cost by.
Yeah, but if we know that there's.
Yeah, we're just discussion here, so, yes, sir.
I don't see it.
Another thing we can do fairly inexpensively is, I think what Chief Blanton attempted to do, is that, we can work with, communications and marketing on a PSA campaign. And, really putting that education out, doing a video or something like that that shows that, okay, this is what 20 feet from the intersection looks like, this is what 18 inches from the curb looks like. And you can make it informative and fun at the same time, and push that messaging out a couple times a year, and maybe gain some.
So your neighbor's allowed to park in front of your house?
Yeah, voluntary compliance is kind of a thing. I will bring up, in a previous slide, I would mention that signage can be a problem, especially when the sign is placed in your yard versus your neighbor's yard or the yard across the street. So whereas we're worried about cars being parked on one side of the street and that side of the street being upset because their neighbors across the street are not being parked in front of, people also can be very upset about, well, why did you pick my house to put a sign in my?
Yeah, but if it's on a stop sign and you say.
If you already got a stop sign, can we attach?
Can you attach them to a stop sign?
Below it. You can put it below it.
Below it?
There you go.
So,
Because you already got the pole set.
so if you could do that, then I think that's probably the recommended method. Because I think putting a new sign up in someone's yard could also.
Yeah.
That's good information.
And then, I want to hear from engineering about, and I think Mr. Fuller kind of hit that about, developers are coming in and they're not going to want to put those wider streets in, and I think that they've had, specific P and Z discussions about not doing wider. It doesn't make community walking areas
Sure.
appropriate, so.
More accessible to the city and developers.
Mr. Hager made a point earlier about wider streets, it's gonna make them believe that more room for them to park and vehicle on the street.
You're gonna invite them.
It's also gonna increase speed, it's more comfortable to drive fast and
Okay. Yep. Well, this was a good discussion, and we know that propaganda's got it going, and we'll see some mug shots of a couple chiefs on the video, and probably some good-looking firemen or policemen saying whatever that might be, right? Propaganda.
A random Google Maps search will come to mind.
All right.
We can attach to that, right? There you go.
Right there. Councilman Franklin, you good now? Anybody else want to contribute to this? Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for tracking that too, and if we, see that it's more, I'm sure we'll come back with another discussion. All right, that concludes our, action items. Now we'll do, departmental reports. Chief Blanton.
Mayor, Council, I just wanted to bring you up to date. We were down, one firefighter. We've given a physical agility test in February. We had 29 qualified applicants that applied, and they met all the qualifications. We had 17 of those show up. 8 of them passed the physical agility. After the physical agility, we do the backgrounds as part of their process to get in for the physical agility. We had 2 individuals fail the background. We ended up moving 6 on to interviews. On-shift personnel conducted the interviews, and we have 1 candidate that has moved on to polygraph and psychological test this past week. We're just waiting on the results of that. Hope to schedule that chief's meeting, and if everything goes well, we'll offer the position to the individual, and then hopefully anticipate the start date of March 27th. So.
Too bad we didn't have if we had 6 qualified people that we could find places for them.
Yes.
I know.
Because we had 6 really good applicants. Sure.
Bob could write us a check for a new fire station. You can then stock that, right?
I'm gonna write it on the mayor's account though.
All right.
Thank you.
Any questions for Chief? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Great job. Chief Wolf.
Mayor, Council, a real quick update on our staffing. We gave a conditional and we're able to hire a brand new green rookie. She starts the academy next Monday. We currently have 3 potential laterals in our pipeline that are in the latter stages of our background investigation, and should have the word on them within a week or so if they're ready to bring on board. And they would be some officers we could bring on, put into an accelerated FTO program. Each of those have some substantial experience that we're desperately in need of at the department. So we're very optimistic that we're also going to be able to bring these 3 laterals on relatively quickly, which would bring us down to, I believe, 3 remaining openings. And we're continuing to test and interview other potential applicants. I also wanted to highlight that I provided each of you with the 2022 annual report and give you all a little bit of time to digest that report. And if you have questions, I'd be happy to answer those either individually or over a cup of coffee at the station or breakfast or something like that. We had some minimal decreases in some of our crime rates. We had some marginal increases in some other areas. I believe a lot of that is going to be due to our population growth and some of our vacancies. And once you review those, if you have any things you'd like to discuss or talk about, I'd be happy to answer those questions for you.
Chief, well, I do have a question. Overall, great job. Great job to you and your staff. Please pass that along. I've observed them in action per se, and they handle themselves very well in the field, so.
Yeah, you get.
Actually, I did get to it on the reason I forget his name.
Oh, don't worry, we know it. We've all seen the video. We got it.
Actually, he did. He caught me late for work. But on page 21, 67% of the searches by reason, 249. Am I missing it? Do you have like a result of those searches? Like was something found or someone was arrested or anything like that? At 249 on page 21?
Yeah. So in the annual report, searches by reason, like you said, you have, the reason for why we searched it, and then, the searches conducted, and then, contraband discovered on page 22. Types of contraband discovered, what we recovered out of those searches.
Okay, so out of that 249, about 55% of that was drugs.
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay, thank you.
And our annual, contact report, it's also referred to as the racial profiling report, is on the police department's transparency portal, which is the entire report from our contract provider that does all of our quarterly audits and our annual report that we provide to the state. So we were in compliance with that, when we turned in our racial profiling report, also referred to as a contact report, which has that's where all of these numbers came from, was that document that we have to submit by the state, or to the state by statute.
Okay. So I have, your officer doing an excellent job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Ms. Beasley.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I just have two things I wanted to highlight real quick from this month's report. The website launch is happening on April 5th, so we'll be going live with our website on April 5th, right in the middle of maybe moving. And then Red, Oak, White, and Blue is scheduled for July 1st at the Oaks Church. So if you guys want to jot that date down, we hope that you can come out and join us. And I'll take any other questions anybody may have.
No question.
Thanks, ma'am.
No lead on your digital marketing specialist? Sorry, I didn't get to the HR report yet.
No, she can touch on it as well. We did have some applicants, and we got some submittals, portfolios back, and have done interviews, but not at this time. So we are still searching.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Okay. Send them our way.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Hartman.
Mayor, Council, I'm sure you've seen all of our projects we have going on in various stages. If y'all haven't been by B&B, they're getting rough plumbing in, before they can pour the foundation and go vertical. Compass is also moving along with their third building on the site, along with doing, Austin Boulevard, along the backside of the property. And then we did just issue the Google permit, and we met with them this morning, for pre-con. So they should be getting going pretty soon as well.
Excellent. Questions? Thank you, sir. Ms. Black.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just a couple things to highlight from the report. I know you always like to keep your eye on sales taxes. We are down for the first time in a while, this month as compared to last year, down 4.57%. However, in February of last year, we had a very large audit adjustment that made up actually about 22% of that entire collection. So we will definitely continue watching that the next few months to make sure that's staying where we want it to stay and keep you posted on that. All other revenues and expenses are looking good. It shows on the report the percent collected or spent, just basically divided up by the year. But of course, not all revenues are collected equally throughout the year, such as property taxes and things like that, and the same with expenses. So there are some notes regarding that. And then also, I just wanted to bring out that we are starting on the budget. for 2024. So we talked about 2022 tonight with the audit wrapping up, and we're in 2023, and now we're starting to work on the budget for 2024. So the departments will be entering those items and working on forms there and getting that set up. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Are you concerned about the sales tax collections for the year? I mean, that was the December number that was down, which is probably, I think that's one of the bigger months, right?
It's not typically one of the bigger months unless there's those audit adjustments.
Got it.
A lot of the higher months are more in the summer. And it was down across the state in quite a few areas, so yeah, we definitely do want to keep our eye on it, but it's pretty much the first month that we have had a decrease, so.
Okay.
I'd also just mention from finance perspective, I had lunch, last week with Linebarger and their folks who do our tax collections, fines and fees collections, those type of things. And they were very, I guess they felt like our collections were doing very strong and that they're not having to do a lot of work. Because most of ours is coming on by itself, so, you know, just one more thing that we're not having to sit around and wait on, because once those get turned over to collections, then it's gonna be in a pipeline for a while. And the majority of those that are outstanding are deferred, senior deferred exempts. So collections coming in are coming in well.
Anything else? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Ms. Amanda? I don't care. I'll never get your last name right. I'm sorry.
It is okay.
I don't want to butcher it.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I just have a quick update on recruitment in addition to everyone else that kind of gave an update. For the month of February, we hired and onboarded with 6 employees. And right now we have about 5 open positions on our website, so we are working diligently to get those positions filled. And then this week we'll kick off some strategy meetings with our benefits consultant hub for this next fiscal year on our renewal. So we'll look at claims utilization, loss ratio, and any new updates that they recommend for this next fiscal year. So we'll start having those conversations as we prepare our budget for this next year. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
No question. Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. Mr. Redford.
Mayor, Council, obviously most of our work right now is being done at the Government Center. We did put out a copier RFP to replace all the copiers in the city. That's out right now. That will close next week, and then we'll be making a selection and bringing that to you in April. The rest of the time at ROGC, we've got all televisions that were all arrived and they're all stored. The kiosk for finance for paying at the kiosk is ready to go. We've got, I think, final training on that later this week. We bought the PCs for the library for the patrons. Those will be brand new. Ordered new conference telephones. We've ordered the video sharing devices for several of our conference rooms. All 13 Wi-Fi devices are installed, and we've been configuring the audio and visual for the council, EOC, and the admin conference room. So, trying to stay ahead, trying to keep up with the contractors, and try not to be the ones holding them up. So, kind of a shell game, I think, there.
Well, thanks, man. Guarded.
Yeah. Nothing that is walkable is installed yet. Is that what you're asking? And we are, BAT Security is in the process of installing all the security in the building. The alarm system is installed. It's not active on everything because some of the doors aren't in yet, but it's active enough. Camera system and access controller in the process. Oh, yeah. Well, it's all, it's not, nothing on site that's can go. It's all stored securely, so.
Thank you, Mr. Brinford.
You're welcome.
Mr. Ragsdale.
Mayor, council, Logan is not on, is he? Out today. So I don't have any technical library updates for you, but what I can tell you is that on Monday, they started installing the new library furniture at the government center. And so that's been installed. There were a couple of pieces that were damaged. They're replacing those, and we'll have those before we open up the building. So, exciting thing is we finally have enough, shelving, to hold the entire collection plus some extra capacity. So the things that we store right now and rotate in and out will actually be out on the floor, at the complete collection. So I think they're excited about that. We've got a couple areas for the kids, a couple areas for the teens, and then some, study tables and some different areas for the computers.
Thanks. Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Mr. Kelly.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I want to give you a quick update on a project out at Hargrove Park with the restroom. I met with the contractor today, and they are waiting right now on some material to come in, so they've got the slab in, it's cured, they're ready to move forward. Should be within the next business day, or 2 business weeks. Within 10 days of today, they'll start with the building of the shell and the rest of the restroom, which will take approximately 6 more weeks when they get going again. So we're about 8 weeks away from being completed on that project. We just completed the touch truck event here at in the back of the building. We were very fortunate to have our Public Works, our police and fire departments here. Really appreciate you guys letting your guys come out. Kids had a great time. We were able to get a helicopter to land out back from Care Flight, so that was really neat. Had a great time with a lot of the kids, getting to see some really neat stuff. We did have a movie in the park last week, Lyle the Crocodile. We had about 85 people show up. It was a quaint event, really nice. And then coming up on Tuesday, April the 4th, we'll have the Bunny Trail drive-through, where we'll have goodie bags for the kids with candy and some other giveaways from different businesses in the city. And then also we'll have the opportunity for folks to walk over in the park and get their picture with Trotter the Easter Rabbit. So it'll be a really nice opportunity. And so if you have any questions, I'd be willing to answer. Yes, sir.
Our Easter egg hunt's off, it was a little bit rough out there.
Yes, sir, they are. They are. Matter of fact, I visited at TRAPS, at our Texas Recreation Park Society. 2 or 3 of the cities that I talked to are no longer doing them at all. They're leaving them up to, they're doing it 2 ways. One, they're doing it at, like, they have recreation centers, multiples. They're breaking them down into smaller groups. And then the other thing is they're just doing away with them. So we're trying to give an alternative to where we don't have those type of issues with large crowds. Yes, sir.
Out of curiosity, our baseball field, what's the highest level that we can accommodate?
Or is age-wise, or?
Like, for example, I know at junior college, a coach had some issues with their field, and was looking for somewhere to rent, and I didn't know if that was something.
We generally go up to 14U because we're 300 on the outfield fence with the extension in the middle to get us an extra 30 feet. So it's for like a freshman team or maybe even some JV, but mainly freshman is where you would cut that limit off.
Okay, I might pass them along to you, so you can talk the language with them. I don't know.
Okay.
Weren't you getting a bid to extend those poles, to make it taller?
Yes, sir.
And?
$800,000.
Oh, have you reached out to EDC or IDC on that?
I mean, we're already putting an estimate over there.
I know.
If we give them out this parking idea for these streets, we probably can raise the money.
No, the price on that was, it's very expensive. It's something that we're still considering, but I don't think that financially it's worth that effort. It would be probably more financially feasible for us to build a larger field somewhere at another location.
Did we reach out to Texas Rangers for some?
So what is it, 3:30? The minimum?
Well, we would like to be 325 on the right, left, and then center field probably 375.
So we can park a fire truck with extension ladder at each one and just run that netting, right?
There you go.
Make a movie in the meantime?
Yeah.
No, because.
Okay. All right, you're serious, 800,000, wow.
Well, I thought we did it, they cannot contribute, you know.
Yeah.
Reach out to the.
Yeah, oh, thank you very much. Ms. Williams?
They reached out to us.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Just a quick update on our ongoing project. Methodist Street is currently closed to through traffic. The contractors wrapped up all of the utilities, all of the drainage, so they're currently constructing the actual widening of the street and preparation for the sidewalks. So they're in that process. We are currently at, and that just really started today, at a delay on the contractor going any further. There's still a couple of Encore poles that need to be moved, but Encore was out today. We've been going through that process with Encore for some time now, and we think that it's finally going to end and they'll get their stuff moved, and AT&T will have to move a few things off the poles once Encore moves the poles. So hopefully we can ideally wrap that up this week, and the contractor will finish within 3 weeks at that point.
So was there, those were supposed to be moved how long ago now?
2 years ago.
So is there a way we could reach out to Kevin's?
Yes, sir, we've done that. And he's been involved, and we're following up with him, and so. Encore was out today. They had construction trucks there, presumably moving the poles. So I'm just sharing with council the kind of where we're at today, right now with that. So we don't think that it's going to, at this point, we think we'll reach kind of the end of that battle, and that will happen immediately. So.
Okay. Any other?
Next item, Methodist Pump Station. The contractor mobilized and is on site and has began the process. Some excavation. They're, preparing the area for the new ground storage tank that's going to go in. So there's a tremendous amount of submittal data that we're reviewing, engineering's reviewing, and that's a 1-year project basically. So we're at 58 days now to go. So.
That tank's going over Methodist?
Yes, sir. Let's see, and then we just released going out for bid for the utility relocates for the TxDOT widening of Ovilla Road. So we hope to anticipate at this point having at the April meeting having the award in front of council for the contractor that will get the bid.
So, question, the logistics of the future water tower on Dobbits. How would that water line run along Methodist? I assume to get to Red Oak Road, down to Dobbits to go to the elevated tower. Is that the direction it would go? Is now the time to spend that money and go ahead and have a pre-line underneath it so we don't have to tear up Methodist? To at least get it to where we would divide it?
It doesn't impact Methodist. It would.
How would I go there?
It would impact Red Oak Road. So it wouldn't impact Methodist.
the old well 5, the pump stations and all that are already on the west side of Methodist Street. So the water's already coming in and coming across Methodist from Dallas.
Okay.
To that side of Methodist. So we don't actually have to cross Methodist. It'll have to cross, as we get further down to Red Oak Road, and it may wind through some of those subdivisions getting there. But Methodist is none of this.
So pump 5 being where was that?
This Methodist Street.
Methodist Street, so the one that's being constructed now.
Mm-hmm.
So is that line that, I'm just asking, is the capacity of the line there such that whenever
We
in
have
the future?
we have a 36-inch line coming in from Dallas that already goes underneath
I
Methodist
understand.
Street. So as you're building this new tank in the pump station, I don't know if you stub out a piece to tie into that, or whether that just comes later, but with Methodist Street itself, it's not an issue.
But the elevated tower that was to be on Dobbins,
Mm-hmm.
how do you get the water lines to that? And does that not have to tie into the one on Methodist?
Well, yes, but it leaves Methodist, pump station west, basically. It doesn't.
So it goes
It
back to
diverges
the
down.
property that we had to
Right.
get that drainage and comes down Hickory Creek? Is that how the water line?
Well, through that area, yes, sir.
Are you pulling something up, Ben?
But there's
I was
also,
just trying to see if able.
And that's fine, y'all know what you're doing, I'm just saying, I don't wanna see in the future that,
There's no plans for anything to be upsized along Methodist Road, so there's no additional lines that need to be installed on Methodist.
fine.
again, the impact would be, on Red Oak Road potentially. There's some lines that need to be upsized and additional lines that need to be put
But
in
they're
that are
already-
larger. Yeah, but they don't have that impact at all. And then we have a 20-inch line on Dobbins, so that's what will be part of that elevated storage that goes in, so.
And then didn't we also put a line south of Red Oak Road across the highway at the same time? When they were putting the gas line in, did we not put a sleeve in for us to get another road or another pipe across
There's
there?
already there's a 20-inch and a 16, or is it 14?
14 is gonna be upsized in part of this relocate. We have a couple of capital projects that are tied into, the relocate, so.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's two though, right? There's the one that goes across the villa, like across 35 on a villa.
There's a new 12-inch,
And the other one that's
there's
south.
a 14 upsized to a 20.
Right, and then there's already,
Already a 20.
There's already a 20.
coming in down here.
Three.
Right, good.
Right here.
All right, I know, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, any other questions?
No questions.
All right, thank you. Ms. Phillips?
Well, Mayor and Council, I have good news overall, I think. Project's still moving along. We have set some, potential, moving dates with staff, and so, we're looking at moving towards the end of March, first week of April. If everything holds true as of today, I will say that is for, just day-to-day operational purposes. Areas in section 3, which is the, east side of the building, so, the cafetorium, council chambers, that area will not be complete. And so, and I heard as late as this afternoon that could be an additional 6 weeks or so behind the rest of the building. So where I originally told you we might have our first council meeting in May, that could or could not happen. So we'll keep you updated, but it does look like we'll be able to open the rest of the building up. Our furniture's install begins next Monday for the entire building, and that's an 11-day installation period. And we also have signage going in the next week or two. We have to, have all the cores and the locks done in the building, all the handle sets. Currently, they've got the majority of the outside safety railing done, as of today. They're, doing a lot of the millwork on the inside, so wood trim, baseboards, chair rails, those types of finishing touches. They did get the judge's bench up, with the witness stand, but we're waiting on some additional pieces in order for them to be able to close that up. And so, you know, again, we're kind of currently at the mercy of the mill workers and the cabinet makers. And then we've had some other kind of, smaller issues that have come up within the last few weeks, relating to plumbing, electrical, water heating, those sorts of things. So we're working through those, as they come up. So, we're getting close. We've got, quite a bit of, as John mentioned, quite a bit of IT things to wrap up, especially in terms of building security, access control, you know, all those kind of finishing touches. So we're getting closer. You know, we'll be putting out some information to staff, either this evening or tomorrow. We have our movers coming to meet with us, on Friday for a move meeting. And so they'll teach the staff how to pack and do all that. And then, Monday, we're gonna, declare Monday as kind of a spring cleaning work day. Give staff an opportunity to clean up their offices, maybe hopefully get rid of some things, you know, lighten our load as we move over to the new building. And I believe that the employee committee is gonna provide lunch for all the staff that day as well. So, be happy to answer any questions, but we're getting close.
Ask the question, is Todd moving that day? To give some special personal instructions? Get everything out of his office?
I already talked to Karen and Summer about it. Give me 2 big boxes and let me do this. And then I'll just put it back on when we get back over.
Whataburger boxes.
So, all right. So have we, if the projected timeframe of when the court system and the tax office can get over there, have we already started taking bids on demoing? And has that RFP been out for the 2 old buildings? And
Why'd you ask that question?
why? Oh.
So we're gonna need to first, prior to doing that, we're gonna need to have, some environmental testing done on those facilities. And so I've gotten with Public Works, we've talked about getting the, same company who did the environmental testing for the school district and looking, seeing what they've tested and then what pieces we need to fill in. Because when we issue the RFP, that's gonna be one of the first things that demolition companies look at, is that, are those buildings clean, or any of them hot? So I wanna have that answer up front, and so we know if there does need to be asbestos abatement. There's high likelihood that we will probably have to abate portions of that building, those buildings. So I've asked Public Works to start working on that, and then they've got a draft RFP document already completed. We've also started working with our utility companies, Encore and Atmos.
To disconnect.
Yes, sir. And so that's gonna take a little while. That's already in motion. So we're working on those pieces, but it's not gonna be as easy as just putting out an RFP.
So is it wise, since one building and one gym is completely vacant, can those be separated and start that process?
I think they could. A lot of the issue is how the electrical is connected to those buildings. So the disconnect will have to happen on all the buildings
at one time.
And that's gonna be a little bit of a delay, as you heard earlier, with Scott's information. I mean, you know, we're not getting quick responses on utilities right now. I think that, you know, they're burdened like everybody else. And then the addition, I think there are some economies of scale when you demolition all of it together versus if you go and do individual buildings.
How about a controlled burn? That gets disconnected quicker, right?
An uncontrolled burn.
Well, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, but we're trying to coordinate that as quickly as we can. It's just not as easy as issuing an RFP and getting somebody out there. I would much rather have the environmental up front.
Sure.
And complete as what happened in the government center.
Okay, any other questions?
No question.
Well, we're looking forward to that coming online. Okay, so the time is 8:55 and we will go into closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code, Section 551.071, 551.087, 551.072. Is there any actions that we think that we're gonna be taking out?
I don't think so.
Those who are here, that time will be, 8:55 PM to enter into executive session. Wow. back into open session. Are you good? All right. Was there any action that need to be taken?
No, sir.
Okay. At 9:34, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Councilman Franklin, Councilman Goodwin, those in favor?
Franklin, aye. Blake, aye.
Smith, aye.
That's 5-0. Good night.